Very warm welcome to the board today. Just as way of introduction, I'd like to welcome Rhian and Joe from Bwrdd NHS Trust. Naomi, sorry, from Bwrdd NHS Trust. And just to say that this is Lisa Llewellyn's last board meeting, formal board meeting with us. And she's about to retire.
I
am. And we've also got Dawn, our independent member, who's joined us online this morning. Jane Sadgrove has left the board, so she sends her apologies. And can I just check for any declarations of interest for today's meeting that are not already declared, that are a matter of influence on today's agenda? I take it there are none. Thank you very much, everybody. Well, with that, I'll hand over to Lisa to introduce the student trainee voice presentation.
Okay, so Bwrdd Bwrdd. Today I'm really pleased to introduce nursing colleagues Naomi and Rhian from Bwrdd NHS Trust. They've been working closely with us on the development and the implementation and realising the outcome of the evaluation of what we call the high performing teams. This is a workshop that they undertake with a trainer approach, and this has been a collaborative piece of work, working across our sort of system, but working across within our organisation as well, because obviously we've got a retention lead in here as well as corporate sort of nurse as well. So this is showing how we work across within HEIW, but externally as well. So this piece of work is grounded in clinical practice and shaped by the experience of nurses, midwives and wider professional colleagues. And it is going from strength to strength, isn't it? So really, the qualitative feedback that we got is particularly powerful. And I'm going to let them share that with you. But, the participants who have gone through this programme consistently highlight the value of the practical, ready-to-use tools, the increase in their self-awareness and the insight into others, thus developing the cultures and behaviours that we want in NHS Wales. And this also creates the opportunity to reflect on what they've attended, but how they can implement these tools as they go forward as well. So psychological safety and everything comes into this. So they're going to describe it in much better detail. So I'm going to hand over to Naomi and Rhian. Croeso.
And can I just say a very public thank you to Lisa for the support and the retention.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Naomi and I'm the Trust Retention Lead at Bwrdd. I'm cancer nurse by background, and this is my colleague Rhian Wright, who's the lead nurse for Workforce Education and Standards. Thank you for inviting us to share our experience of working alongside HEIW in addressing this practical challenge that we were experiencing within our organisation. So would you be able to change the slide? Okay, so with the sign-up of the Compassionate Leadership Pledge by our Executive Board, there was an expectation that we would roll out the Compassionate Leadership modules developed by HEIW to all staff. As the retention lead and focusing initially on the nursing workforce, it was clear that clinical patient-facing nursing staff were not engaged with the offering that was available through the learning and development team, and they weren't accessing the online modules that had been created. There are obvious pressures within the organisation identified, preventing staff from being released for training. Mandatory and statutory training alone is a challenge. So in addition, just as a bit of background, in 2024, within the Cancer Service, we welcomed our first and only cohort of international nurses. And at the same time, welcomed new qualified nurses for the first time through the streamlining process. Historically, nurses within the Cancer Centre had arrived with previous clinical experience. But having this influx of new staff in such a concentrated manner helped us to be recognised that could deliver clinical supervision, and through this it helped us to recognise the need to refocus on the culture, the behaviours and values that were being demonstrated by colleagues within the workforce. It became clear that there were educational needs for nursing staff in relation to compassionate leadership and recognising that it is everybody's business. As a result, we spoke as a senior team about how we could best reach the clinical nursing teams, and we decided that bite-sized learning seemed to be something that we should consider. Looking at finding resources that could offer short, sharp and interactive learning was agreed as a possible way forward. And internally, within our organisation, developing what we thought we might need was started, but it was a slow process. The learning and development team continued to deliver the modules to the wider organisation, but the uptake, that wasn't great. And Rhian had been in conversation with the team here in HEIW, so things started to move on. So move to the next slide. Okay, so what did you do for us? I won't labour, but we were very lucky to be a part of the pilot session that was delivered alongside other colleagues from across Cardiff and from Health Visitor and Child Health. 5 of the nurses from across our organisation came along to that session, and we delivered a 2-hour pilot session that showcased the resources that have been developed by the team here, and given a format that we could utilise. And basically, it was a real big toolbox that we were given that made a lot of sense, and it was like an idiot's guide. So, there were no excuses not to be able to use it, really. And then we were given opportunities to try it out with staff, and the team here had this was quite. I like this bit. Between May and June, we had weekly positive reminders with a quote and a challenge to reflect on. Actually, that was really did kind of bring me back to what we were supposed to be doing. And then back in July, we had pilot evaluation, and the resources were updated. So literally,
So we held the sessions, the bite-sized sessions for staff. And I just want to kind of describe to you a little bit what that looks like. So establishing your real home team, we do an exercise where we ask participants to write themselves in the middle as a kind of spider diagram, and then surrounding them all the kind of teams that they work with or that they're part of, just so that they can see all the connections that they've got, not necessarily just in the organisation, but outside the organisation as well. And then we kind of ask them to hone in on their home team. So where the team that they feel brings them a sense of belonging, and we just kind of ask them then to share that with the other participants. And it's a good icebreaker, especially if some of the other participants don't know each other as well. And it doesn't feel too intrusive either to start on. And then we move on to know your team's shared visions and goals. So with this exercise, we ask them to pretend that they step into the future and write a postcard back to their team. So we say that you're 5 years from now and that you've been a really successful team, you've achieved lots of accolades and awards, and you're known as a really innovative and successful healthcare team that provides kind of excellent evidence-based care. So we ask them to write on the postcard how they got there, what it feels like to be there, and what they've achieved along the way, and write that back to their colleagues. And we ask the participants to share that throughout the room. And we just pull out the kind of key themes, goals, and values to help shape a vision for the team. Then we move on to understand your team members and their individual value. With this exercise, we use a called Insights Discovery Model, which is a psychometric model that helps kind of enhance your own understanding of like self-reflection, really, and how you behave and interact with others. And it just kind of helps them to build effective relationships within the multidisciplinary team. Kind of use a visual colour-coded framework to guide that process. The next one, handling controversy constructively. This one, I haven't had to use this one on every occasion, and what I would say is you need time to do this exercise. It's no good asking people to kind of share their concerns and issues and then not giving that enough time. So, like I say, I haven't always had to use it because sometimes in the conversations you have around the rest of it, some of that comes out. However, when you do use it, you ask them to write on sticky notes their concerns or issues, and then you ask them to sort of select put them in different piles. So things that your manager can help with, things that you need to perhaps discuss within the team, something that you might need HR advice for, and then perhaps something that you just need to reflect on and then move on or discuss and move on. And so, you know, and we finish off the session on a positive, and this is probably my favourite one. And we ask everybody to think about, you know, recently their positive contacts, their positive interactions with colleagues or positive feedback. Everybody shares their own experience, and we kind of then talk about how important and the value of those positive interactions are, and how we can maximise that and bring more positivity to the team. So that's kind of what it looks like in practice. I can have the next slide, please. And this is just an overview of what we've done so far. So we've delivered to approximately about 80, because we've missed one out. I remembered last night that we also delivered one in July to Welsh Blood Service, the clinic collection assistants there. There were about 10 to 12 participants in that one. So you can see that we've kind of done it sort of consistently throughout the year, and we've also incorporated it into our preceptorship and nurse induction program as well. It's really helped us build a suite of kind of compassionate leadership, incorporating, like you said, Lisa, the kind of the psychological safety as well, and we've incorporated some instability to that as well, to kind of support comprehensive delivery.
And I think, yeah, and this is the impact. Yeah.
So we won't read this, we'll leave this for you to consider. And just as a caveat, all of these things have happened, but some in small pockets, some in bigger pockets, but actually that it is evident already that those people that have been a part of this see things from a slightly different perspective than they did before. No process. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you
very much.
Okay, and this is actually where you've got this is the feedback actually from staff, isn't it? Of what they think. But we won't go through that. John.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you for the slides, which I found very interesting, I have to say. One of the areas that I was interested in particularly is around the focus that you give to psychological safety, particularly within teams. Very niche area within the literature and within research. But we know that in such situations where teams feel their psychological safety, teams thrive, they're effective, etc. You need to be speaking to a lady called Anna Lewis, who's doing a PhD at the moment on psychological safety within teams. Swansea. My question to you is, what real outcomes, you know, I noticed some there, but they were a little bit vague on the slide. What absolute outcomes did you see as a consequence of that interpersonal risk-taking that took place within psychological safety in teams that you did? There must have been specific impacts that you saw, whether that was the student voice, more evident, or...
I can think of one particular session that we did that was really quite powerful. It was with a group of senior nurses who worked with each other on a daily basis. And actually the insights exercise that we did really challenged two of the people in the room, because the perception that they had of themselves was very different to the perception that others had. But I think because of the way that the sessions are structured, it led to facilitate that psychological safety. So that kind of holding the space. So we were holding the space. They were having that kind of exploratory conversation. So it's a safe space from that point of view because we were holding it.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, you're absolutely right. You know, I read those, they were vague. They were vague because we haven't evaluated it in huge detail, but actually all of those things in pockets you feel and you can find and you can still, you know, go back and see. But I think, you know, that psychological, it doesn't always exist, and within those teams often people don't have the headspace, the time to stop. And I think that's probably that particular session made me recognise that this was many senior nurses who actually viewed themselves in a certain way, but actually when they spoke to each other recognised that actually perhaps they did come across a different way, and actually maybe there was a better way to communicate with them, and they liked things in a different way, and that's maybe why they're a bit, you know, perceived as a bit irritable or short or whatever. However, you know, people were able to explore that and say, that's how I feel, that's how I perceive you. So I think having the time and the headspace and somebody else holding that space made the difference.
Sure.
Thank you very much. So, shall I very quickly?
Yeah, John, on the issue of impact, really important. And the rollout of this, we will hit about 700 people at that clinic by the end of this financial year. The evaluation, because we didn't have to do the pilot, but the evaluation is going to be more robust in terms of, and we're working with Professor Michael West and Helen's team, you know, to make sure that we've got exactly what you're asking for.
Excellent. So we will let you link to that now.
Okay. Well, look, thank you ever so much for making real some of the things that this organisation has led on, and use it the way that you've managed to use the toolkits and the impacts and influences it's having on the front line. So thank you very much.
Can I just say one thing before we leave, that without the resources that you provided as an organisation, we would still be floundering around in Bwrdd trying to find the time to put those things together. So I think, you know, without the hard work of the team here, that wouldn't have happened.
Thank you.
I keep saying things.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Right. Well done.
Thank you.
Right. Draft minutes of the board meeting held on the 27th of November 2024. Have you read the minutes?
Yeah.
Are you happy that they're an accurate record of the meeting? Can I go on to 1.5, the action log from the board meeting held on the 27th of November? Have you considered the action log? Have you any comments to make on the action log? If we go back to the board minutes of the 27th of November, are there any matters arising that are not on today's agenda or have not been covered by the action log? Are you happy for me to sign these board minutes off as accurate?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Chair's report. Chair's report is there for you. If that presentation we've just had is a reminder of what one of our core ambitions is as an organisation, and that is to be the best of partners, to make others shine and to enable people to come into the workforce and continue in the workforce to serve the people of Wales. The pride that we have in the quality of the offer that we give in terms of education, training and life chance is a really important core message. That essential pipeline into the NHS is the lifeblood of now, because many of them serve and practice whilst in training, And it is also the future, because the workforce we are producing will be able to continue to develop and continue to advance their care for patients. I think train, work, live has very long legs, and it speaks at volume to the fundamental principles behind the Future Generations Act. In terms of the board, I'm very pleased to say that the process for appointment of a new independent member through the public appointments process is on track. Following Jane retiring from the board, Dawn Jones will become a member of the Audit and Assurance Committee, and Judith will take on the role of the Speaking Up Safely champion. I'm not going to let this moment go without paying respect and gratitude to Lisa in her last board meeting, a formal board meeting. The impact you've had across your portfolio is not insignificant, and some really heavy lifting and achievement has occurred across multiple professions. But at your heart, I know, is the nurse. Having personally had a long career in the NHS, I have great respect for people who have served the NHS. I'm not going to try and calculate the decades, but let's put it this way. It's quite a shit. So the other thing I wanted to remark on is your leadership in terms of a iaith Cymraeg. Now, these things matter a lot. So, Lisa, on our behalf, on everybody's behalf here, diolch o galon. So then, I was very lucky to chair a stakeholder reference group, and the minutes are there. And again, this demonstrates at the core the nature of the way we work in partnership to support others to achieve their goals. I also want to point out some key chair's actions. So in terms of my report, I'm asking you to approve the appointment of Dawn Jones as a member of the Audit and Assurance Committee. I'm asking you to ratify the chair's action taken on the 18th of December 2025 to approve HEIW entering into a lease unit 15 Willowbrook Technology Park to support the Endoscopy Academy, and agree that I affix the common seal. Yes. I'm asking you to ratify the chair's action taken on the 18th of December to for approval of a single tender action for work package 2 for the CODI project. Can I have your approval?
Yes.
Thank you. And can I also ask you to approve that Judith becomes the Speaking Up Safely champion for the board? Yes, thank you very much. And I'll just close by just making one further remark. The people that are involved at the front line are not only delivering direct patient care, they are also delivering the education, training and support of our students and trainees. The organisation benefits greatly from their energy and from their commitment. And despite the NHS working its socks off to deliver direct patient care, the other part that needs to be recognised and valued is the part played on developing the people who come in and the people who are already in the workplace who can develop further. Thank you very much. Alex, Chief Exec's report.
Thank you, Chair. I think that
the majority of this is self-explanatory, but there is one omission, which is probably that Coddy went live since the last formal board meeting. So we should recognise that, I think, and thank all of our staff, but also all of the people that worked with us across NHS organisations for their patience and their dedication to get to Coddy implemented, and also obviously to Sian and Tom in particular for their sort of leadership as well. So thank you for that. The education and training plan, we are still waiting for the outcome of that, and are engaged in discussion with the Welsh Government on the details around that, and we will most definitely communicate that with partners as soon as we know the outcome. We're also doing, I think the work on the education strategy is proven to be a really good platform to engage people in lots of things around the future, because obviously you can't look at education in a vacuum, but certainly taking that discussion to the Chief Executive Group a few weeks ago with you, there was huge enthusiasm to really get involved in that strategy and to really use that as an opportunity to think about what do we need for the future and how are we going to get there. So that's made us rethink our engagement actually, to make sure we've got plenty of opportunity to engage not just our NHS colleagues, but our partners right across all relevant interested areas. So I think that's going to be a really strong piece of work as we go into next year to really land that strategy and to really make sure that that is driving us in the right direction so we can deliver what the chairman has already talked about. The other thing is, in case people didn't already know, Lisa is leaving. So, you know, we will have more chances to say goodbye to Lisa, but this is her last formal board meeting. So again, I'm going to ignore the fact the chairman has already said it, but it's important that as Chief Executive, I also thank Lisa for her huge contribution over the last 4.5 years. Up to 5 years actually since we did the interview. And you know, we have done an awful lot of work during that time on some significant strategic things that have really taken forward a lot of the different professions under that portfolio, as well as manage some really difficult operational issues with education and training over that period. So, you know, really great legacy that Lisa will be leaving as she departs for her fantastic retirement at the end of February. And we're all really grateful. She's been a key part of our team over those years, really helped us shape the organisation, and has been, you know, really active participant. So I'm really grateful for the personal support and all the support the executive team that Lisa has given us. So we'll see how many times we can make her cry today. Do you want to say anything, Lisa?
Oh no,
No,
not at all.
I don't want to.
Well, actually, yes, I do really. Actually, I just want to say a big thank you. Actually, yes, the NHS is a great place to work. I've had a wonderful career. And yes, you will make me cry again, but never mind. Actually, but part of it is about the people we work with, and actually why we're here, and it is to serve patients. It's been an absolutely wonderful journey, and it has actually enabled me actually to touch parts of the NHS that I never thought I would when I started out. So others have actually heard, actually I call it actually my NHS tapestry, and it is very colourful. Yes, there are challenges, always, but nevertheless you learn, and it taught me actually, and it helped me to grow as a person. And it is about actually the people actually that I've worked with, which I would miss actually most. But a big thank you to this board and actually to my exec team, because yes, it was a new arena. I was coming back to Wales. It's allowed me actually to reconnect actually with my roots, and it's been absolutely amazing. The Welsh language that you mentioned was absolutely amazing. So I actually put down on my application form that I was really just, what did I put to HEIW? I said, but I was band 1, was I? I was not very confident. And it's so right to say actually, but it's got to the point that yes, I could present actually back in my sort of Welsh language roots now, and it's been an absolute joy. But it's been great to be able to sort of give back actually to Wales, actually what I actually noted from Wales as well. So big thank you. And yes, I'll say lots of big thank yous and farewells along the way, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Diolch y galon.
And we are having a sort of a farewell celebration event on Friday the 27th, Friday the 27th of February. In this building around lunchtime. If anybody wants to pop in, and we have invited lots of partners to come along as well on that day. Thanks, Lisa. We have then in parallel with that been successful in recruiting a new executive director of nursing, health professions and quality, and the remuneration committee has supported that this morning. So I'm pleased to announce that we have appointed Sam Donoghue, who will be joining us on the 2nd of March. And Sam has got, again, a varied experience across a number of different areas of the profession. This will be a first substantive role in Wales. So again, you know, really look forward to welcoming her into this board. I know that all of my executive team and independent members here will provide Sam with lots of support in her induction.
Also Sam, because I know she's on.
And Sam is on.
And what I will say is, and I forgot to say it to you, and you're coming, you're going to be working with actually some fantastic teams as well. So the teams she's coming to work with and lead are absolutely amazing, and I love them to bits.
So that's an important part of business. And then also to note that we don't want to make Glyn cry as well. But Glyn has also had a new opportunity offered to him and will be leaving us in May. And so we are just about to start the recruitment process for a new director of finance, planning and performance. So further details of that will come out in the next week or so. But in the meantime, obviously we're very grateful to him for all the service that we've had over the last few years and the contribution that he has made, but we will have lots of chance to recognise that over the next. Any questions on the report? Happy to take them.
No. Right, thank you very much, everybody. We move on to part 3, Communications Engagement Strategic Framework 2025-30. Sian.
Thank you. So as the board is aware, we approved the strategic comms and engagement framework, and you were part of building that framework with some workshops, and that came to the board for approval at the end of last year. So this paper provides an update of that initial progress. So the aim of the framework is to enhance effective partnerships and relationship management, advance HEIW's role as a trusted leader and partner, and amplify HEIW's value through improving our strategic communications. So I hope you'll see from the paper that it's been a busy first 9 months, and thank you to the team supporting this work, but the whole of the organisation as well, because this is most definitely an organisation approach, not just a single team. So the paper demonstrates that in the first 9 months of delivery, we've moved from a setup into a more structured and focused assurance phase. There's some clear early outcomes across all those priority areas. I know you will have read the paper, so just to pull out maybe a few. I think there's been a significant change in emphasis and now a focus on managing stakeholders actively, understanding them and working with them on a proactive basis. But also a lot of work that you will have more involvement with in the board development session of improving our messaging and our narrative and how we describe who we are, and particularly how we add value to the NHS system. So a lot of work and focus is going on into those areas. And also then improved governance and quality and how we are telling our story. So improvements in our social media campaigns, in our interactions, and how we're selling ourselves through activities such as the revised brochure, and also in our engagement with proactively with other stakeholders of invites, events and forums. but generally within the team as well, strengthen governance in relation to how we're managing requests, how we're planning events, and a more structured and a formal way of taking some of this forward. So in essence, I think we've made a good start. There's still a lot more to do, and we've got a good commitment of the team and the organisation and my exec colleagues to take this forward as a strategic priority. We will be working with you in the board in February, but I hope you can take assurance that this is a first snapshot of you seeing something after you signing off the framework, and we'll be releasing a full review of the year once the year is closed, so that'll probably come during Q1.
Thank you, Sian. Any comments? Dawn?
Yeah, I'm really sort of pleased with the sort of how this far has progressed. Sian's great report for you and the team. I think the focus on moving to a more structured and disciplined approach comes through clearly, and the emphasis on that consistency, the storytelling, the narrative, and the evidence of impact feels really right. So well done.
Donna, then John.
Yeah, I've got a comment just to say, yes, it was great when this came to the board, and it's been really helpful to see this update. So thank you, and thank you to everyone who's been involved in it. And I was pleased to see that under the section on the evidence approach that we would be undertaking a stakeholder survey to provide the evidence going forward. So yeah, really well done.
Focus at the moment is mapping and understanding, so the survey's got more value.
Absolutely, and I completely get that, but it's good that it's there as the market will do that.
John?
Chair, thank you, Sian, for the report. Around the evidence has been made. I think that's important. We keep our decision making informed based. That comes through in the report. And equally, that should form the trajectory for the evaluation report, so that we keep an evaluation lens on this constantly. And that links to my question. It was quite interested in the appendices attached to the report. There were certain parts of the social media metrics where there have been clear jumps in use of LinkedIn, whatever the social media. I don't need to know now, but it would be very interesting to learn from what were the triggers behind that, what were the factors that stimulated that, so that we can use that as a basis for, well, what do we now need to do to take that trajectory to the next step and use that as part of the evaluation. So a very good start. I like the emphasis on evidence, because when I was reading it, I thought, oh gosh, these are so loaded, these words that I would use, I have to say. I thought they're so, but you were evidencing them, so you placated me. So that was okay. So I like that. I like it. But I think working out what are the triggers, the learning from that, and keeping an evaluation lens on this at all times.
And just 2 points on that really is that part of the work, and Dawn is here and will be leading, is that social media engagement strategy to understand how we maximise and how we learn from that, and where new channels or new opportunities. I think there is something in that demonstrates we're understanding our audiences better. So when we're trying to get traction, it is hitting a better mark with people, and to reassure you that we're reconsidering evaluation, both in the metrics that are coming through in the performance report for next year and in the IMTP, and almost if we can't evidence, they're not hitting the work plan really. So a real focus on outcomes and evidence, and just again to thank Dawn and the wider team, and on Harrod, and possibly Helen's online. Yeah, Helen's online as well. So the wider team.
Yes.
Sian, this is a very easy report to read. I'd say it goes to the heart of how we cast our ambition of being the best of partners, and understanding our people that we are working for and people that we're working with is very clear. The other way around is people understanding the way we work and our reasoning. So I think this report is very helpful in exposing those elements. and I'd encourage you to. You've enjoyed doing this, haven't you?
Yes, got a good team.
Yes, but it's not usually in the bag of political director, is it?
Well, there are links
Yes.
around us.
Yeah.
Understand. I think there is maybe not traditional, but I think the link between the insight and doing our work to understand our partners and delivering value is right across digital data and comms and engagement. So there are there's a Venn diagram somewhere where all of those things come together.
Okay, very good. So I'm asking the board to note the progress and early outcomes in the delivery of the communication and engagement strategic framework. And do we take assurance on progress?
Yes.
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 That's a clear yes. And we very much look forward to the development session in the February development board as the next steps in embedding clear, consistent organisational narrative. I think that's very timely. Thank you very much. Agenda item 3.2. This is the integrated medium-term plan update 26-29. You're googling.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. So, as the Chairman said, this is an update on the progress that we're making to develop a 3-year plan for 26 to 29. I had originally hoped, and this was the optimistic me, hoped that by this board we would have had our remit letter and funding allocation for next year. Unfortunately, we are still waiting for those. And obviously, had we had those, it would have been a more in-depth paper around what was in the remit letter in terms of priorities, what the allocation was looking like, and how we were looking to sort of take that forward. In the absence of that at the moment, we are still doing work on producing each of the individual objectives that we think we would expect to see a 3-year plan going forwards. So this is very much based on the work that we've done collectively and with some of our stakeholders around some of the longer term horizon planning and then what we think we would need to do over the next year and next 3 years. So we have a number of development objectives which will look at making progress in terms of some of the transformational work that we're doing within HEIW and the system, as well as objectives that look at how we make sure that we continue to deliver the core business as well. And then alongside that, making sure that those supporting functions, I think Charles just highlighted a really good example of the work on comms and engagement, how that will also support the delivery of the 3-year plan going forward as well. So the update is probably thinner than I would have liked to have been able to present, but hopefully it just gives the board assurance that we are doing all of the work that I think we're able to do to get us into a position to be able to present an IOTP to the board in March and to submit that by the deadline of the end of March to Welsh Government. So happy to take any comments or questions.
So yeah, I think as Glenn has described, the latest position is that the organisations that aren't covered by the planning guidance will receive the remit letter and allocation letters by the end of January, which is obviously tomorrow. I think that doesn't happen. This becomes a risk for us all of a sudden, because we can work on that basis to that point. We've done as much preparatory work as we can do. But really to go any further now in terms of crystallising the plans, the money associated with them, the resources they're going to need, it's not possible really until we get clarity around what's going to be in the remit letter and also what's not going to be in the remit letter. Because, you know, given the financial context at the moment, we're very aware that this organisation, as much as any other organisation, may well have to deprioritise work as well. So I think as of next Monday, if we don't have that information, I think we are going to need to identify that as quite a significant risk in terms of how we take that plan through our governance arrangements between now and the end of March. And, you know, more importantly, how we come up with a plan that is balanced, but also delivers on things we're going to be expected to deliver on. So As we speak today, we're still hopeful we will get that tomorrow. But if not, we will make sure that all board members are updated next week.
I share your disappointment that the remit letter's not out. Slightly concerned that might not even come tomorrow because they may get confused with the ETP in terms of that decision-making process, and so the risk, I think, is probably quite high in terms of we might not get the answers early next week. And it's going to impact on where we go in terms of trying to finalise the IMTP. So it's going to be a big pressure point.
Whilst I recognise this is a discomfiture, having just remarking on the work that's been done so far, we have a track record of turning around an IMTP in a cohesive way, and I think we have to understand the reality of a very complex financial. It's only this week that the budget has completed its course through the Senate. So we are in very short time frame, but I think we have to understand that we need to make sure that whatever goes in the IMTP is consistent with the government priorities as they stand, and particularly with the Cabinet Secretary's priorities for health and social care. And the commitment from the organisation, of course, will be to work to the best of our ability to deliver a viable, energised IMTP plan with energy. Having said that, if it comes tomorrow, that would be really great. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. So we've now reached 5 minutes past 12, and we've been very compassionate and put in a 10-minute comfort break.
That's my legacy.
We'll reconvene directly back here at 12:50. Thank you. Croeso nôl. Diolch yn fawr. Oh, Glyn, it's the Integrated Performance Report.
It is, thank you.
Yeah. Magnum opus.
Thank you very much. So yes, you have the performance report that broadly covers the period up to the end of November. There are 1 or 2 sort of material things that we've included since November that we felt were important to including the performance update, including things like the phase 2 endoscopy proposal that we submitted to Welsh Government in December. So that was a positive step forward that we wanted to share in the report, and we're currently waiting to hear from the Welsh Government of that proposal. The report, as usual, highlights progress against all of our development objectives. I think generally it sets out a positive trajectory of progress as we move towards the end of the year. It also highlights some of the other achievements. I know CODI and migration to CODI was mentioned earlier, but again, I think that's another one of note that we would want to highlight. It also identifies those areas that we would want to alert the board to. So in terms of the CPD strategy, you'll be aware that there's work to actually refresh this and develop a CPD framework. So that will come forward in due course. And then the other area that we've spent some time on since the last board was to do a bit of a deep dive around some of the digital transformation work. I think just recognising that there are so many demands for good data and digital support, increasing demands, but actually the capacity and having the right skills is something that's extremely hard to provide, a very competitive market that we're operating within. So we've undertaken a deep dive to look at how we try and prioritise those areas that we would particularly need digital support going forwards. It will be a key feature in the IMTP work that we do as well. So when we talk about some of those supporting or enabling objectives, the work or the support we need in terms of digital support is fundamental to so many of the development pieces that we're looking to take forward in the IMTP. There are also updates there on education and training, and we provided an update on the latest position in terms of streamlining for the spring cohort of nursing students who are due to graduate this spring as well. So I won't cover any more in terms of the report because I'm conscious there's a lot in there, so happy to pause and take any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
As always, thank you for the report, very comprehensive, lots of information that we want to have questions on, but it's there and it's answered, it's clear. I suppose it is, you know, you've highlighted it, but you know, we've sat now several months at boards and talked about digital capacity and reassured that there's this dive going on, but it does talk about some projects not being delivered on the back of that, and also that we're now in a maintenance position, not able to take them. So I just, you know, I've got a degree of concern that that is not necessarily progressing as it should, given the critical function it is.
Yeah, I appreciate the concern, and it's something, as Glenn said, we're actively working on. So to give maybe a bit of insight into the areas that maybe haven't progressed. So there are areas in the digital transformation space in particular where we would have used internal applications through the Microsoft 365, where we would have either enhanced or built new products that the business could use. So improvements such as maybe the performance app, or improvement to the postgraduate management or the placement app. So there are applications of things that we've put in that maybe the business would have wanted further work enhancements done to, that we haven't been able to progress. Now that doesn't mean that that informational way of working isn't captured in another way, but it's not to the maximum method of working digitally. So it does have an impact on us as a digitally mature organisation, but there hasn't been anything that has stopped the SRO of an IMT objective, something delivering on their objective. It's just not achieved the level of digital use of systems or developments that we would have wanted to achieve. So I think it goes to our ambition for being digital, and haven't been able in those areas to produce some of that. So what I suppose is the next piece. We are looking at that through 3 areas of work, really, through our IMTP for next year, really understanding requirements, as Glyn said, getting in early with the SROs to understand and really understand what we can do. We're working with the Arden and Jen piece of work on a digitally mature way organisation, and also within digital and data. In December, we launched an OCP to look at roles, responsibilities, and bringing some teams together around effective ways of working and bridging some leadership gaps that OCP is currently working its way through, which will help in some of this leadership space. So we are aware and got several ways of addressing that for next year.
And I think that's it, because I've heard some of the explanations, and I understand that you're doing that. It's that kind of, and when will it be addressed, and are we going to be able to take that forward?
Some of the gaps from April, some of the skills development ongoing through next year, but those teams coming together, that OCP work should be completed by June.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean.
Can I just ask on the back of that? Some of it is necessary, mission dependent. Some of it is desirable, and some of it is ambition. How do we manage the expectation? Because the ask is getting bigger, the ambition is not going to get any smaller. Not whilst I'm here, right? I'm just saying that the organisation has got an ambition. So on the face of it, the report looks, concerning, that part. But actually thinking about it in terms of desirable, mission essential, or is this ambition? And I don't want to curtail ambition, but I just think it might keep our feet on the floor a bit.
Yeah, I think we can learn from this experience and categorise those in that way more into our deliverables for next year, so we understand and we're talking the same language in that way. I think a lot of this activity, because as an organisation we are ambitious to be a digital first organisation,
yes,
and we want to maximise digital tools and ways of working in everything that we do. So there was a lot about our app development that improved processes. They're not necessary to carry out that process, but they make it more efficient, they add more value. So that's the piece that we were going at, but we had to cut our cloth this year based on some of those requirements. So I think describing that into next year's IMTP, and those conversations with SROs are happening, as Glyn described, through the prep that we're doing for the IMTP in the next financial year.
Judith,
yeah, thanks. 2 points, if I may. The first one is in relation to the CPD strategy, which is is red as an alert. I'm just trying to get a handle on the timescales for the refresh that's been discussed, which is at top of page 4 of the paper. It talks about a refresh CPD framework. But there's no timescales against that.
We can add the time frame there. So what this is about rethinking how we were actually going to develop that framework. And I can honestly say to you that a workshop was held this Monday just gone, as part of our refresh, and the ambition is that we were to be sort of achieving that soon. Haven't got the absolute timeline yet, but we can articulate that.
Okay, thanks. And my other, it's not so much a question for today, but it's really a request for the next CCQC agenda under the quality section. There's areas there, the 4 areas that are under the GMC enhanced monitoring. And I suppose the request really, if we could have a little bit more detail than the normal, particularly I've highlighted the cardiothoracic surgery, which in the body of the report actually doesn't show any sign of improvement. So if I could have a little bit more detail on that when we come to the committee, please.
Yes, no further action, Darren. Okay, John?
Thank you, Chair. 2 points in relation to the report. The first one, there's evidence within the report demonstrating the need, something that we recognise as a board, but demonstrate the need for a cohesive approach to workforce planning. And there are symptoms here around our fill rates, our employment rates, which suggest that perhaps we need a more cohesive approach across the system in terms of our workforce planning. So my first question is, can the board be assured that we are keeping a close eye on the risks that I note are in the risk register around these areas, and that we are monitoring those risks, particularly fill rates and employment rates? That's my first question. And the second one relates to the quality plan. Again, we recognise the importance of the student voice informing our work and the nature of our decisions, but the delivery within that and the plan is being delayed. So my question is, are we clear about the associated risks with regards to the delays in that work, and how are they being managed for board assurance, please?
Which one do you want first?
I
Do you want to respond on the first one, on the
right.
workforce planning piece of the mechanism?
Yeah, I mean, I think we would agree in terms of a strengthened national approach to workforce planning. We have our first meeting of the Workforce Supply Oversight Group next week with representation from all NHS organisations, and that will be the first time that we've had a conversation with all organisations around the output that's coming out in the summer, and to start us to be able to plan as a system for what's coming out. That's an immediate. That's the immediate issue. But actually, this forum will provide us an opportunity for that regular engagement with organisations to understand and to balance the need and the supply, and to be ensuring that all organisations have the appropriate information to hand in front of them to enable them to do their local planning. So I think that's the start. I think it's enabling us to have different conversations and to be able to work together as a system to plan to I suppose to act in response.
I accept that, but the challenge for me and the challenge for us as a board member, as board members, is that in many ways there are risks associated with all that. We can have a risk in our risk register, but often we're not fully in control of that risk because responsibility for the delivery of elements of that sits within an organisation. Now, I'm making a point, aware that this is a public forum. It's where we need to be working with partners in order to deliver, so that we're all managing the risks associated with this, not just us as a board seeing it as our responsibility, even though we've got a live risk on it. But the fact that we've got fill rates as we have and employment rates following commission that this year have been very challenging is symptomatic of the need for the work that you're doing, and to keep an eye on the risk. I think that's what I'm saying, as a collective across the system.
I think we would agree. I think this gives us the opportunity to be ahead of the time scale, and I think increasingly we'll come closer to understanding the need and the decision making that is happening within health boards and trusts to be able to respond with more agility. I think, Sharon.
Just to add to that, from a data-informed decision-making perspective, I think we are really welcoming that oversight group for the first time as having a focal point in which to take some of the information and data, so that people are starting to proactively use the better data and richer data that we've got. So there are a single point of truth, and actually maybe that will encourage some debate and some quality and some data issues. But let's get into that as a mechanism of making having a single view across the system of where we're at and how we make informed decisions off the back of that. So it as Helen said, the first is the priority areas, but I think there will be a maturity and a focal point for the delivery of our workforce information that we haven't been able to share up until now, and we are welcoming that as a method of sharing that information.
I mean, I think the point that you're making, John, is it's not just our risk, is everybody else got it on their risk register.
Absolutely.
And they probably don't have it on their risk register at this point in time, because probably the impact, other than some of the specific issues we've dealt with, the impact is a bit spread. But I think what we've done is agreed the establishment of this group through the Chief Executives Group. So they've endorsed the need for this mechanism. And I know that the chairman has been discussing this group through the chairs group as well. So, you know, only the figures will tell us the nature of the exact risk for exact organisations as we go into this summer. And maybe that will require organisations to share our risk rating on some specific professions in some specific areas. But I think that, you know, when we have identified these issues, organisations have very much come to the table to play their part in helping us sort this out.
That's all the issue. Thank you.
The chair's absolutely fascinated by this, and I've recommended that the visibility of this is raised at their board level. But I've got a comment to make that one of the things that we could be guilty of is just looking inside Wales, and we fish in a very big pond. And I think that one of the things that is not present in this report that might be very important going forward is benchmarking against the rest of the UK nations. Because, for instance, paramedic, the nursing, the blockage between foundation and post-foundation training, these are symptomatologies that can be seen across the 4 nations. And I just think we could be looking at a situation where we might get a canary in the mine by actually tracking. Now, this performance report is mature to a point where actually we'd be capable of understanding that sort of benchmarking and making it intelligent. So I would recommend that we are aware in the wider sense of where we are benchmarked against the rest of the UK. And there will be fundamental changes made by regulators, by a very powerful now Department of Health in England, and also in Scotland, and to some extent Northern Ireland, that might give us forewarning of what is coming down the pipe, whether it's opportunity or whether it's challenge. I just think that would be another string to our bow. But it is a different set of metrics to what we set out to do.
We've got better data
Yeah.
on this than anybody else, because we've got an incentive because the nursery and other places have
Yeah.
this.
It shouldn't be accessing that, but we can.
Okay.
On the quality aspect, you're absolutely right, and I think we mentioned it in the quality paper later. So we set off at the beginning of the year to look at that learner voice, and during the course of this year, the board will let you know that we've looked at the assurances that we've got in place, and we've reviewed that, particularly in relation to maternity and neonatal. As a consequence of that, it has made us actually look at that in a bit more detail. And actually the quality oversight group that's mentioned in that particular delay. So therefore it's delayed because we have done some further review, and the quality oversight group actually has had its first meeting, and therefore is actually looking at that in greater detail. As well as that, and it does mention in the report further along, we did have an audit, and the learner voice was raised there. and those actions have been concluded. So what I will actually assure you is that work is ongoing and progressing well, and rather than delayed because of we decided to review and evaluate a certain area.
My comment would be it needs visibility
in there.
In the board. That would be
yes.
Right. But no doubt officers are working and the team are working on this. But actually to get the assurance level that John is indicating, it needs more tangible visibility.
Absolutely. And of course, the learner voice that you heard at the beginning of this meeting is part of that process as well. So there's a number of actually aspects to it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions on this? I have one ask, which is in the CPD framework, how is that linking to the education strategy?
I mean, people actually involved actually in the workshops developing the CPD strategy are engaged in that education strategy.
In terms of the balance of the Once for Wales offer that this organisation affords, one of the things we're very good at is the undergraduate or the postgraduate medical training. That's a Once for Wales approach. I think there's going to be huge opportunities for the workplace developments for CPD, and that would be we could be a very supportive partner of organisations for Once for Wales approaches where they are necessary.
So there's a matrix way of working actually, and the workshops actually does involve everyone.
Right. So linkage to that education strategy, I thought is a pretty key element.
Yeah, the relationship will be defined.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So I'm asking you then, please, we've received the report, and we've had the opportunity to gain assurance across the report. So thank you very much. Director of Finance. It's you, Glenn.
Thank you. So again, a lot of detail in the report. Really, I think particularly important as we come towards the end of the financial year. In terms of those headlines, we're currently reporting a surplus of just under £500,000. I should say that's after we returned £1 million funding to the Welsh Government. So at the end of the last board discussion, we identified there was a potential surplus that we could return to Welsh Government. So that funding has been returned. We've now, I think, in this financial position, got far more up-to-date positions around both the autumn cohort of students who have started courses, those students who have potentially left courses this year, as well as a better position on the uptake of the student bursary as well. So all of these drive significant financial costs in terms of our position. Because of that, we've also looked at some spending plans, looked at things like levels of vacancies out across the organisation. Our view is that not only would we probably break even this year, but potentially there's a line of sight to deliver a surplus of around about £2 million based on what we know at this point in time. So I wanted to raise that with the board today on the basis that, again, we may be asked to return that funding to Welsh Government if there's no requirement to use it to deliver our objectives and priorities, which, based on our assessment to date, suggests we don't need it. So, as you say, that would be returning funding of £2 million, which would still enable us to deliver a break-even position. Conscious there's some nuances there around, is the forecast surplus of 2 million or is it break-even? We would be forecasting a break-even position if we returned to £2 million funding. So hope that's clear. In terms of capital position, we have secured some small amounts of additional capital funding during the year. and that's helped us to support purchases around IT equipment, endoscopy training equipment, which obviously for the work around the endoscopy academy as well. It also supports some of the work that we've been doing on national programs around developing the theatre workforce, where some of the IT equipment will allow theatre staff to do online learning in their workplace. So again, I think some really practical, tangible examples of where this money can help people learn in a more accessible way. And then the final area is around paying our invoices on time. We're currently exceeding the target of 95%, and if we continue on that trajectory, we should more than meet that target, which again is a positive thing. So again, happy to stop there, take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Any questions for Glyn?
Just following up on your point about the high probability of the further 2 million. It's a question of when do you get to that level to see that you open that dialogue with Welsh Government, because there's a bit the sooner you have that, I guess, the better type of thing, isn't it? From a tactical thing, from an organisation, I was just wondering, has that dialogue started? Or, is it good to have it before the 12th of February? I don't know. I just leave it as a hanging question. Don't know how you answer that second bit.
No, that is a very good question, and one that's that I thought about in terms of having confidence. So I think at month 9, and we also undertake some financial deep dives with each of the directorates and their budgets. We've undertaken a couple of those ones taking place today, where we looked at people's spending plans in detail. So it's sort of a Q3 assessment of where we think people are going to end the financial year. I think there's a level of confidence at the moment, based on what we've seen so far, that we would be able to return £2 million of funding. So I'd be reasonably confident that we've, in our sort of financial monitoring with Welsh Government, we have quite detailed monitoring returns every month. We've highlighted this as a financial opportunity to Welsh Government, so they're aware that there's a high probability. They will be looking, I think, to confirm something probably next week, to allow them to help manage the overall NHS Wales position. So I think in terms of timing, they will be asking us for a review probably by the end of next week around whether we can return that funding.
Any other questions? All right, well, Glyn, you've always been the best of partners with Welsh Government.
Yeah.
And I think there's been absolute clarity, honesty and transparency in the way that we've afforded our business. So I don't see any reason why we should change our position on that. Thank you very much. 4.3, approach to developing the education and training plan. Who's taking this one? Our medical director,
I will start off if that's okay, and then Ian can come in. So thank you very much. This paper sets out the approach for the education and training plan for 2027-28, and as we've already heard today, we are yet to fully hear the outcome of the 25-26 UTP, which of course will be relevant to the content that informs the forthcoming plan. But what this paper outlines is not the commissions, it's the timelines and the approach that we're asking the board for support on, reflecting on some of the lessons learned and the context, financial context within which we are working. So the proposal really is to strengthening evidence base and modelling capacity that is emerging within the organisation, ensuring really that we have that focus where we have evidence. And where we don't have evidence, that is very clearly articulated, but using that maturing evidence base we have to inform all recommendations, and developing a number of scenarios. So rather than a single set of recommendations, really ensuring we explore all those different scenarios in the context within which we're operating, fully modelled financially and considered in the context of affordability. So there will be a number of clear assumptions underpinning the approach. And of course, as we discussed earlier, strengthening that communication and engagement with our partners to ensure an understanding of the evidence base and the complexity of a cycle that is varied across those different professional groups. And we need to bring all of that information together to make meaningful recommendations rather than the cycle timing informing approach. So what this hopefully outlines is a fairly sort of robust timeline of how we intend to use evidence-based, strengthening our engagement with partners to inform what the next year's plan will be. And in the appendix, there is a detailed timeline, but underpinning all of this, there is communication, engagement and plan with clear responsibilities allocated to each of those stages.
Yeah. Well, I, for one, pick my term in the September. This is looking at the workforce that people that will emerge in 2031. So for doctors, that's 2032 for doctors.
But the range is even bigger for doctors.
Yeah.
Postgraduate doctors.
So what I'm trying to say is this is looking a long way into the future, but the future comes very quickly, and the future is impacted by small blips, and we're in a position at this moment where, as you point out, 25, 26. The key message from what we get is the importance of partnership working to get this as manageable as possible for a new cabinet secretary and a new government to actually approve in sufficient time to take advantages of opportunities that may or may not have occurred. So I would advocate that we keep looking at the process and keep honing it so it has the best opportunity to get the best bang for the buck for the Welsh Land. Apart from that, I'm asking you to approve the approach as laid out. I'm asking you to note the workforce supply and education to employment issues that will be escalated through what does WSO? Well, workforce strategic supply. Okay. It's just drips off the tongue. Yeah, but it strikes me that is a very important new fulcrum. And then note that the recommendations and options in the 27-28 ETP will support Welsh Government to make evidence-based decisions on education and training commissions 27-28. These are important structural pieces of work for the NHS as a whole, not just for this organisation. 4.4 duty of quality mid-year update. Lisa.
Diolch yn fawr. So this is just an update on the 6-month review of how HEIW is implementing the duty of quality. Obviously, we had a discussion previously, and as alluded to, I want to bring it to attention to internal audit that was undertaken, and we have now completed the actions on all those recommendations. And then what we did discuss previously, John, was about the learner voice, and in this report I'll draw your attention to 3.2 on the work that we've done with sort of the maternity and neonatal education and training, and how we are putting in place more work to be done to listening to the learner voice across our commissioned education programmes. Happy to take any questions.
Any comments or questions, colleagues?
Sure. Probably a question of ignorance from my behalf. I was sort of wondering, does HEIW, do they have a role in terms of external assurance of quality in our organisation?
HEIW,
yeah.
No, doesn't.
Okay.
We actually sort of our partners.
I understand that. I've seen the partnership part of it. I know they have a role in other NHS organisations.
We just have to submit to sort of the assurance we give, and it comes through our board. Is obviously the annual quality report, that is undertaken actually by all organisations. And actually that's actually our compliance actually with Welsh Government on how we're actually enacting the duty.
This is one of the key interfaces that directly affects patient care. It's an indirect, but it's also a direct.
Yes.
And I think the importance of this will grow. I don't see this diminishing. And the key bits that we learnt from our deep dive into maternity and neonates, I think there's some general lessons there, particularly about how we engage and work with partners across the piece to ensure good training and time for staff development. So, this is an important report. Judith.
Yeah, thank you. I was just trying to remember the
acronym.
That other group, WSFG was. Anyway, what I was thinking, I saw this and it's a really helpful summary. But I suppose I was thinking, how do we get the student voice or something goes wrong, not necessarily through what's happened with the neonatal. So if I look at when we found out that there were some post-paramedics, when we found out what was happening in Swansea Bay with nurse recruitment, we really weren't picking up, as far as I'm aware, the student voice there when they first know when they weren't getting the post.
Until they shouted.
Till they shouted. So how do we somehow improve the way we get that intelligence to come through, which is not necessarily about the quality of what is being delivered, but it's the quality of the outcome of that process. So I haven't got an answer to that, but it is something I'd like to sort of explore when we can bring to the EC.
I think that's across actual
because that we do focus a lot on the education commissioning. We are starting to focus more on the quality, but there's something about the education quality itself in the commissioning. So I'm not necessarily looking for an answer today, but it is, I suppose, an ongoing process within that committee is how we get that early intelligence.
So the outcome of that deep dive, we've set up a quality oversight group, and we've got two oversight groups at the moment. So this one is specifically working with the medical directorate and the Ian's directorate to understand what is coming through those systems. But you're right then, it's how that starts to inform, if they don't already know it, the broader information is coming through as well. So I think it's now the work in progress that we need to explore that. But I hear what you're saying, we haven't got that yet, but we need to explore that further.
Yeah, the key issue that Judith has raised there, I've got two very small minor things that would be useful to see or to not necessarily come here but to be aware of. One was obviously recommendation that all staff should attend a duty quality awareness training session, which I do think is really important. And it would be, I know they're only just kicking off in some respects, but it'd be good to know our progress on our staff attending those, and that is being picked up. And then I seem to be the capacity person this morning, because again there's kind of a throwaway line that says at the bottom of the report, no financial implications, but there are capacity implications for this. And it's just that I just wondered if there was something behind that line that we need to know.
Is achieved. Maria's retired.
Well, okay, so
therefore, as a result of the reorganisation and some coming in, that's being explored.
So that's
what that meant.
And I suppose that's what I was wanting to understand. Was there something behind it? But I'm assured that you are going to have a resolution
and having some interim solutions as well.
Okay, thank you.
I think inoculating the whole organisation with this approach to quality is really important. This isn't not just one person's bag. This is a whole organisation.
And to be fair, that is the approach. And I will say that the work across the organisation has, evolved. She's only been in post a year or so before she left, but therefore that matrix approach has started to embed.
So I have agreed for a board development session in June on
QMS,
on quality and safety, and I think that would be the time where we can hear exactly how we're going to approach accessing the student voice and the trainees' voice, and more so people who are trying to train in the workplace.
And that's going to be delivered by the National Quality Management.
Yes. So I've had a conversation with them, and I've asked that it's very specific for an organisation like ours.
Yeah. So
it's not just their normal presentation. Okay, any other comments? Thank you for that. Welsh language update.
Right, okay.
Y ran olaf.
Diolch Cadeirydd. So mae'r papur hyn yn darparu sut drwy'r bwrdd ar gyd-ymffurfiaeth addysg iechyd a gwella Cymru a'n cynllun iaith Gymraeg dros y 6 mis diwethaf, a i tynnu sylw mwy na dim at y cynnydd wrth i ni baratoi ar gyfer y trawsnewid i safonau iaith Gymraeg. Barod i derbyn unrhyw gwestiwn.
Diolch yn fawr. Pryd ydyn ni'n when will we actually required to report to the Welsh Language Commissioner as part of the Act, as opposed to an organisation that's acting within the spirit?
Yeah. So there are deadlines, but up to now, we've done a self-assessment about where we are against the standards, and of course that's what this report has highlighted. We are expected to start reporting during the course of 26-27. But the key areas that we know that we, and I've identified this in the report, there are certain standards where we will not achieve that immediately. So the conversations I've had and agreement had with the Commissioner to extend that for 18 months in certain aspects, because they are quite significant challenges in terms of our website, data, etc. And conversations are already happening with our teams as to how we're going to achieve that.
Okay. Any other questions on this? Okay, thank you very much. You've been asked to consider and note the update in respect of embedding Hughes speaking. No, I've gone on to the wrong thing. Members are asked to note and receive the assurance that the HEIW continues to operate fully in line with its Welsh language scheme and is well prepared for transition to the Welsh language standards.
And the team have done a lot of work.
Yeah,
well, I commend them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lisa. Speaking up safely, update. David?
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Felly, papur yn adrodd ar y cynnydd a meddwl ar y gwaith trwy'n gwneud, fabwysiadu fframwaith codi llais heb ofn. Byddwch yn nodi fod gwaith da wedi wneud bod ni'n asesu bod 30 o 32 amcan wedi cael ei gwblhau. Mae uchafbwyntiau'n cynnwys ein cynllun ymgyrch i codi ymwybyddiaeth o codi llais heb ofn, a fydd hwnnw'n targedu staff, myfyrwyr a phoblau. Da ni hefyd wedi prynu platfform sydd yn galluogi staff i wneud cwyd yn ddi-enw, a mae hynny hefyd wedi helpu i ni adarnhau gwasanaeth sydd ar gael i gefnogi codi llais heb ofn. O ran y ddau amcan sydd heb cael ei gwblhau, mae'n braf gallu adrodd cynnydd yn y meysydd yma hefyd. Felly, o ran derbyn gwybodaeth gan y Prifysgol a cwynion maen nhw wedi derbyn gan myfyrwyr, da ni bellach wedi cael cadarnhad y bydd y Prifysgol yn rhannu'r gwybodaeth hynny gyda ni chwarterol, a da ni'n disgwyl derbyn y data hynny am y tro cyntaf yr wythnos yma. O ran galluogi ein staff i derbyn gwasanaeth gan tîm diogelu arbenigol, mae gwaith yn mynd rhagddi o ran cwblhau contractau fydd yn galluogi ni derbyn gwasanaeth hynny. Ac yn olaf, allai ddiolchu i Judith am gymeryd a'r rôl o fod yn becawntwr codi llais M1. Felly, papur i'w nodi. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. Are there any questions or comments? I have to say thank you to Jane for her work in establishing the role of the Speaking Up Safely champion and her influencing with her substantial experience in a previous organisation. I think it's been that was extremely helpful. If there are no questions,
yeah, just something I mentioned before to Dan about how do we handle the sessional staff, and is it clear to them how they report up in terms of speaking up safely, in terms of the substantive and the sessional commitment to us?
That's a point that we are looking into, and I will get back to you. So there's 3 points. Currently, they would be coming under the same processes as the rest of our staff, and they some of them obviously have their full employer as well, so they're covered that. But we do need to kind of target that.
Yeah, just to make sure there's no gaps.
Yeah. So it is an area that's a bit grey, isn't it? Because they are, for instance, if you're a medic, you're responsible to your regulator, to your substantive employer in terms of your clinical practice. But what about in terms of your training or educational practice? And if there's we just need clarity on it. If no one asks a question, we won't need clarity on it. So can I ask that you bring back to the board a position on that? Okay. The board's asked to consider and note the update in respect of embedding HEIW Speaking Up Safely framework for assurance, and just to confirm, as we did earlier, that Judith will act as the independent member champion for Speaking Up Safely. The in-committee decisions are there for you to be noted. The Shared Service Partnership Committee report is also there for noting. And I'm asking you now to look at the corporate risk register. So in terms, this is facing the executive team for the moment. Is there anything within the corporate risk register, given today's discussions, that needs reflecting on or changing?
Not at this point. I think the previous conversation about the letter and application how that impacts on the.
So this is a live. The corporate risk register will always be a live register. So you meet as an executive team once a week. That's plenty frequent enough to be able to make a decision on the risk and inform us as or discuss with us as independent members. Yeah, but I'm fully expecting reflection, at least a decision as to whether anything needs to be escalated or de-escalated. Okay, that's very helpful. Any board members with any issues with the corporate risk register as it stands?
Thank you. The explanation on risk and team is very helpful in terms of how the scoring is done.
Please
go. Sorry.
Go on, John.
The only thing that struck me going through it, it's concerned. Yeah, perhaps concern is the right word. It's concerning that we're carrying so many red risks. And they're right. I don't question them at all. I've gone through them, and I think it's right and proper. Whether it's me thinking it, but they seem to be increasing. So I think the message for me from today is we really need to be keeping a close eye on those. They are real risks. They're significant. So I'm accepting where we are, but it did hit me when I went through them.
It's not the fact that they're risks. It's what we're going to do about, what we may need to do about those risks.
Yeah, the impact.
The impact of them, right? And clearly, we need to be very precise as to those ameliorations that are within our gift and those that are dependent on others. Yeah. Okay. I find the corporate risk register incredibly helpful. I'd be very worried if there was no note there. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. That brings us to the end of today's meeting. I'm pleased to say that it is 5 minutes past 1, and I thank everybody for their contributions today. And we will meet again in a development session, or at least some of us will meet again in a development session on the 26th of February. And the next board meeting, open board meeting, will be on the 26th of March. HEIW. Diolch o gael.